Welcome to this particular episode in my journey trying to come to terms with the suicide of my oldest son. As I'm making this, 40 days have passed. If he was anything, even though his mother was white, Dutch, he was always aware of his dualism, aware of his African heritage, very proud of his African heritage. So he always wanted to know a lot about Africa and African things. So today I'm going to try and give a perspective, my perspective on suicide in Africa versus suicide in Europe, how we see it, how common it is, how you will expect that it will be more somewhere where it is less and less somewhere where it is more. But first, let me begin with the perspective of the 40 days. It is normal in our tradition, somebody dies, and then if they are close, you mourn them for 40 days. This is not a scripted podcast. I'm just saying them the way they come to my head. So once in a while, it might sound disjointed. Please forgive me, because my brain goes from here to there. And because I don't have a script, I'm just saying what comes to me. As a father, I was not supposed to bury my child. I was not supposed to even be at his funeral. Coming back to the question of suicide, Dayo is the first person I know personally as an African, both growing up in Africa and here, who took his own life. You will expect that the way people perceive Africa, the way the media has put Africa in the picture, like it's a place of misery, it's a place of poverty, it's a place of disease and wars, that people will be so miserable that suicide will be something that is common. As far as I know, and I've asked a couple of my friends, it is not a common phenomenon. Of course, some of us have heard of somebody far away in another village who killed themselves because of some mental illness, or somebody who just felt there was no way he could continue to live and they killed themselves. But that's very far, extremely far and in between. Since I came to Europe, I've heard of several people who have decided to end it all. Within Nigerian and Yoruba culture, why would you kill yourself? That's the question people will ask, and people will ask that question because there is always a feeling of togetherness. Even when you are having problems, quarreling with people, you are almost never alone. So that if you have problems, you don't always feel like I am the only person alone in the world, I cannot solve this. Compared with Europe, it's always like you have to solve your problems yourself. It is your problem. Whereas we have this Ubuntu mentality in Africa. You are because I am because you are. We are together. I'll give you an example. In the house where I grew up, which was my father's house, my father was what we call the landlord, had a house, 9 rooms. He, as the landlord with his family, we occupied 4 or 5 of those rooms, and the other 3 or 4 were rented out. But even though he was a landlord and there were other people living there, the kitchen was a general kitchen everybody used. The toilets and the bathroom everybody in that house could use. And the children played outside during the day or under the moonlight. So if you don't see somebody in the evening, you're gonna know that person is missing. So you ask after the person. You knocked on his door. You asked, hey, what's up? Well, there's a woman, wife, who was not in the kitchen cooking when the other people were cooking. You knew what was wrong. If something was wrong, if there is happiness, you shared everything together. You are always together with people. On the other hand, since I've been in Europe, I've read a lot of news about people being dead in their houses for in one case was 5 years, and nobody knew that person was dead. I'm like, does he not have a family? Nobody's calling, and how? And what always fascinates me is that then the newspaper, the media goes to the neighbor and says, wow, how could we not know? Why did we not know? He was always a quiet person, but yeah, we did not expect this. And to me, I'm always like, what I did not expect is that this is not happening more often. Because in every street, in every neighborhood, you knew somebody who has died or committed suicide or something like that. Because it is a more individualistic society where everybody is supposed to solve their own problems alone, have your own fun alone, do everything as an individual. So when you go into that trajectory within yourself, like, I have nothing to lose, nobody cares about me, it is always difficult to have people prove you wrong, to say, hey, we care about you, because everybody's in a hurry. And in Nigeria, in Yoruba land, people are always also in a hurry, but it's just to catch the bus, taking them to nowhere. If something happens to you, there is always somebody who will put their arms around you. But here we are running after bills. Whatever happens, you will get the envelope from the tax office, this office, you have to pay this, you have to pay this. Europeans have a lot of what we call it's a welfare state, but people are just running like headless chicken from A to B, trying to make ends meet, but having nobody to talk with. Whenever I want to make somebody confused in Europe, somebody who knows me, is when I'm going to give an answer to the question that we always ask ourselves, how are you today? Because the general answer everybody gives and everybody's expecting is, oh, I'm fine. How are you? Oh, I'm fine. Okay, take care. See you. But if I want to make somebody confused, I will just look at that person and say, hey, I'm not fine. And I've done that a couple of times. Not because I'm not actually not fine. It is actually because I just want to see if those people really mean to ask me how I was, if they really cared. I want to put a pin into the balloon of emptiness that we all go through. We all pretend, oh, how are you? I'm not fine. And then you see the confusion in their faces, in their eyes. They're like, oh shit, now I have to stand and listen to this person who is not feeling well. They just withdraw, like, I will talk to you later, but I need to catch my train now, or I need to bring my kid to school. Nobody sees you, nobody talks to you, because we're just making noises and we think that's talking. In Europe, we have a lot of money in our pocket, but nothing in our hearts. The only thing that makes us rich is money. But we are empty I'm poor in every other thing. When you are in Africa, I need to clarify this. I'm just making a comparison, and I'm very subjective here, but I'm also telling it as it is. Even in my subjectivity, there is no way somebody is going to lie dead in their room for that long that nobody will notice. We have financial problems in Africa. Of course, that's why people look down on Africa. So there are a lot of people who are poor, very poor, people who struggle every day to make ends meet. But people also have this kind of faith, whether it's their religious faith or whether it's just their natural faith, like things are going to be okay. Even when you know things are not going to be okay, they are still hoping things will be okay. They will go to church, the mosque, practice their traditional religion, think it's going to be okay. And here, who are you talking with? Who is your reference here? And the reference we have here in Europe is, I'm in trouble. I have to solve it alone, because if I don't solve it, then I'm a weakling. You don't kill yourself in Yoruba land, because we believe if you do that, your soul is not going to ever rest. You cannot say rest in peace. You will never have peace. That is the curse that is imposed on somebody who takes their own life. So people are also scared, because they are scared, like if they die, their soul is never going to know peace. So I know that's a lie, but that also acts as a kind of deterrent. Many people have faith, they have religion, they have all of those things. They believe like, nah, I want to actually rest in peace. So you are forced to look for other alternatives. And the attitude to death in Europe is like, it's gone, next. 2 weeks after my child dies, his house has been emptied, and the next person who's going to live in that house is already there. Matter of factly, do it, use your head, forget you have a heart. That is maybe one of the reasons why Europe is more advanced technologically, industrially, and everything, because people just use their head. And that is why in Africa, we are still like 500 years behind, because we are only almost using our heart. My plea will be that we combine both. We use our heads, but we make a connection to our hearts also. And if we are using our hearts a little more, I'm not saying the heart should take over, but if we are using our hearts a little more, maybe we'll be able to have compassion for our fellow men and women. Maybe that person who is deep in depression, who goes into that tunnel, will feel confident, like, if I tell other people what I'm going through, maybe they can see me and they can help me, just listen to me, show me the way. Just maybe Dayo will have lived. Maybe for those who have lost loved ones also to this disease, maybe they could have had more confidence in humanity. All of us are going to die one day. But while most of us are waiting for death, which we think is the natural order of things, these people should not, I think, have to make the decision to end their lives. On the other hand, people do that on their own accord. Maybe it's better. But since that is not the natural other things, I have to appeal and hope that Europe and Europeans will find a way to combine the head with the heart. And that same goes to Africans. I've had the privilege, the honor, the luck to have spent half of my life in Africa. It's still where I feel the most comfortable, but also the privilege and honor to have spent the other half in Europe. We have found a lot of joy. My children were all born here. I see what's good in our culture and what is good in our culture, because both is our culture. Me, I'm an African, I'm European. I see what's good in Africa, I see what's good in Europe. Perhaps we can find a way to combine both. I really loved my son. I really felt we were close. I really felt he could tell me everything. But there is this burden he had that he had to solve. Every problem he had alone, and his deepest problems, deepest demons. And since he died, I've spoke with a couple of younger people also who tell me they are facing the same kind of dilemma, that, sometimes they slip in and out of depression, and the common denominator is the pressure everyone is under to be the best and to not show any kind of weakness. Whereas my philosophy has always been, be yourself, and if you are weak and the other person cannot take your weakness, it is not your problem, it is a them problem, it is not a me problem. Because we are human, that person goes home and feels miserable also. But in the public domain, everybody is a superstar. The social media, and we keep losing sight of that is important. The whole system is being created now to separate us. Everybody has their own car, has their own bike, has their own house, has their own everything, private jets and everything. I even see when I take public transport, somebody comes in, sits there, and another person comes in, doesn't sit with that person, goes until they find a place where they can sit alone. So I see the next person comes in, I'm like, there's an empty seat near that lady or that gentleman. No, but that person prefers to stand instead of sitting with somebody. And that's totally different from what I see in public transport in Africa, whether it's in a Molue or in a Matatu. We just go in, we sit with each other. Sometimes we sit on top of each other. Africa might be poor in money, but not in compassion. We are rich. We actually look and care for fellow people. We see ourselves, we talk with ourselves, we care about ourselves. And that is why I think comparatively, and in the situation where we are like, oh, one is poor, one is rich, you will expect the poor to be the first one to say, okay, I'm gone, I've seen it all, I'm gone. And the rich to say, hey, what's up? I have money, I can do whatever I like. But just shows that having money in your pocket doesn't put happiness in your heart. And sometimes not having money gives you opportunities to explore other things. People from the work of the mother of Dayo never called until somebody called to shame them, and then one person called 4 weeks later to send their condolences. I mean, I cannot wrap my head around that. Where is the humanity? Where is the compassion? Life is short. We should not live this life alone and lonely. It's not how it is supposed to be. The good thing is 95% or even more of the people have found a way to be individualistic and try to find some semblance of sanity and happiness. But it should be almost 100%, given that we always look down and say people in Africa are this or that, but we have everything. So why are we so miserable? Shouldn't we slow down a bit? In Africa, people are just going to be shocked. As I'm speaking with you now, a lot of my friends in Africa, some of them who know about the death of my child do not know that he killed himself. I'm sure if some of them will see or watch or hear this podcast, will be the first they will know about it, and then they will be even more shocked than they were before. I've had that experience last week when I told a friend of mine who knew my son died, like, do you know it was suicide? And she almost fainted. Why would that happen? Because those are things we cannot comprehend. So if it appears that I'm speaking rubbish, it is from the point of view of lack of comprehension, because I didn't grow up in a place where it is just common, and it's not like everybody in this street or that street are killing themselves, but I already know about 10 people, whereas growing up in Nigeria, I don't recall knowing even one who committed suicide. That's a place where a lot of people live. And it might appear that I'm blaming people. Actually, the people who decide to go, I don't give them any blame at all. It is us collectively, myself included, that we should become more human and more humane. How many people have you actually heard today? How many people have you actually listened to today? How many people have you actually talked with today? I was speaking with a colleague of mine about this topic of talking about depression, and she was saying to me she takes medicine against depression. She says to me she finds it difficult to talk with people about it because people have an opinion about depression. That is, even if they listen to you, because most of the time they don't hear you, but the moment you talk, they already are going to say, yeah, oh, the friend of mine there also has depression, and that also has this. Whereas my depression is different from your depression. The reason why I'm depressed is different from why you are depressed, and what I need might be different. Sometimes what I need is just to hear my own voice. So if I have somebody to talk with, and just saying that might be a way to relieve, to take a step back. For some other person, they need some other things. But what do? We have learned to give our opinion. And that should not be the case. So people are scared because they feel like somebody's going to reject them. Then we go and pay a therapist to listen to us for 45 minutes. And the therapist gives us the same recipe it gives to me, it gives to the other person. We need to find a way. If I've offended anybody with this analysis, please forgive me. If you are listening to this or watching this and you feel like you need somebody to talk with, there are always people, professionals, friends, family. Talk to somebody. There is always somebody to help. Sometimes we just have to look a little bit more. Take care of yourselves.